What's the best part about Deadlock? Correct, its items and build variety. Well, don't get me wrong, there are many other amazing aspects of this game, like lore, character designs, and the Lash Rule 34 artworks. But items is like the glue of this game that ties amazing gameplay mechanics and unique hero kits together perfectly. So in this video I want to talk about my favorite items in Deadlock and potentially share some feedback on items that I find a bit boring. Let's start off light with Mystic Shot, and spoiler alert, there won't be any standard gun items in this video for a couple of reasons, mostly because I think pure gun builds tend to be quite boring and you build many heroes kind of in the same way, and that's one of the things that I hope will change, especially considering that the new gun items they added interact with hero abilities in a more fun way compared to just flat fire rate, boost or bonus damage. One of my favorite things in Deadlock is hybrid builds. Those types of builds focus on investing either equally in multiple categories or investing a bit of souls into spirit or gun category to hit your 4.8k spike. And Mystic Shot is great at fulfilling this role of a gun item for spirit-oriented characters. One of my favorite builds for a character is the Lash with 4.8k gun investment, and in that build you get Mystic Shot. The item itself gives +7 spirit power as a simple stat bonus, which is interesting for a gun item, but the core of Mystic Shot is its passive that says your next bullet will deal bonus spirit damage. Initially it's just 40 bonus damage, but it scales with other spirit items you buy, which makes it an amazing combo for characters that want to build spirit but also have a decent gun. If we take Yamato for example, her whole kit is all about dealing high spirit burst damage, and Mystic Shot works really well with her right click attack, which throws this projectile that has a small explosion area. It's great for poke, but most importantly it's amazing for your spirit burst combos, like pressing her second skill to grapple towards an enemy, then immediately right click in their face with Mystic Shot and do Crimson Slash right after. This item also has fun interactions with some other spirit items. For example, Mystic Burst causes abilities dealing more than 80 damage to deal additional spirit damage. But it's actually not just abilities, it works with any source of spirit damage, so you can proc it with just your bullets if you buy Mystic Shot. Another fun fact, spirit damage from Mystic Shot occurs before the bullet damage, which is an important detail for an item like Bullet Resist Shredder, which reduces bullet resist on enemies when you deal spirit damage, meaning you will reduce their bullet resist first and then you will deal more damage with your gun. In my opinion, interactions like this is the bread and butter of Deadlock. That's what makes the mechanics of this game so deep, and it's done really well. Let's move on to the green category, and the first item I want to talk about is my GOAT, Majestic Leap. The movement of Deadlock is quite complicated and has a very high skill ceiling, and if you master it, you can traverse the map like a literal Tarzan. But what if you don't give a shit and you just launch yourself in the skies and skadoodle out of the fight, or drop yourself in the fight like a nuclear missile? Majestic Leap is a utility green item, and yeah, it does give you a nice barrier when you use it, but the movement aspect is what makes this thing so useful on some characters. If you take a hero like Pocket, who has a very powerful ultimate ability that can win you a fight if you hit multiple enemies with it, the hardest part is getting into the middle of the fight to hit your affliction, especially considering how squishy Pocket is. But if you just take your time and position yourself carefully on the side, you can just press a button to fly up and then press it again to drop on top of your enemies' heads and just frog all over the place on those unsuspecting victims. Another case where Majestic Leap is very useful is on ult build Warden, and yes, you can build a more standard and reliable gun Warden to just walk around and shoot people, but that's how losers think. The most unreliable part of Warden's ultimate is the cast time. It takes him quite a bit of time to charge it up and enemies can just run away from you. Well, what if instead of standing there charging it up like a moron, you majestically leap in the air and cast it in the sky like a beautiful fairy, before dropping down on the ground with your ultimate online and just watching your foes run away in fear, but it's already too late. Aside from using Majestic Leap to combo it with your abilities, it's also a great item to just move around the map very fast. As I described before, you can cast it to fly up and then press the button again to drop, but if you press your jump button right after you drop, you can give yourself an insane amount of momentum and travel even farther. Despite what I said, I don't think Majestic Leap is overpowered or anything, because just like some other items, it cannot be used for 5 seconds if attacked by enemy hero, so you can't just magically escape any difficult situation. If your positioning is garbage, you will still get punished, and I like that. Next up, Magic Carpet. What a stupid item to have in the game. I think a game like Deadlock could use more items like Magic Carpet, to be honest, because its usage is so niche and it is so rarely bought, but whenever I see someone fly across the map in the middle of a match on a magic fucking carpet, I have to chuckle a bit. Magic Carpet is an active item, but it does give some nice bonuses like Spirit Power and ability duration, however you definitely don't buy it for the stats. I really like this item, but to be honest, when I tried to think of what characters could actually get some benefits from buying it, I could only think of two. One is Mo and Krill, because obviously on Mo you want to get close to the enemy and grab them with your ultimate, so you could use Magic Carpet to get some really unexpected kills, especially if you can coordinate that play with one of your teammates, and of course you get 15% ability duration on top, which helps for sure. Another character is Bebop, I guess, but kind of. There is another tier 3 item that I will talk about that I think is more useful for him. In theory, you can use Magic Carpet to just quickly get to someone and double bomb them with Echo Shard, but it's not like you can't just do that with your own 2 feet. And then another application is getting a nice angle with your ultimate. Maybe you can fly behind the enemy team and deal a bunch of damage unexpectedly, but that's very situational. Honestly, I like the spot that Magic Carpet is in. It's kind of a troll item, and it is an item that originated from a forum post, so that's cool. As I said, you could use Magic Carpet for Bebop, but a way more useful item for him in my opinion is Veil Walker. If I'm not mistaken, there are only 3 ways to go invisible in Deadlock. One is Haze's second ability, the second one is Shadow Weave, and then Veil Walker. But the reason I like Veil Walker more than Shadow Weave is because it's conditional and not just an active item, which is in my opinion a more fun design for an item. Veil Walker passive ability activates when you pass one of the cosmic veils, that are those shadowy things you can find around the map. Once you pass it, you go invisible and gain increased movement speed, with some healing on top. I really like how limited stealth is in Deadlock, and having an item that requires you to take a certain path to get this ability is good design and makes it balanced. I also think it's very fun to play around with this item, coming up with a plan to make a surprise gank on a character like Bebop and just uppercutting your poor opponent into your team's hands. It can also be a great item for characters that have oppressive CC, like Abrams. At the end of the day, what could be scarier than Abrams popping out of nowhere and pinning you to a wall? Let's get back to gun items for a second, and once again my choice is a gun item that works well with Spirit, and it's Alchemical Fire. It's an active item that you can throw and create an area that does increasing spirit damage, while also reducing bullet resist. So just as Mystic Shot, this item works perfectly in hybrid builds. From what I've seen in many games, people kind of seem to underestimate how powerful this item can be, and players often die just because they stand in the fire for way too long, thinking that their spirit resist will save them, but then they get destroyed by bullets because now their resists are down. Alchemical Fire works really well on characters that have a lot of crowd control, like Ivy for example. Her turns deal damage and immobilize targets if you max them, and if you pair that with Vortex Web, another cool item by the way, and then throw Alchemical Fire on top, the damage can be fucking insane, and that is especially useful in fights for objectives, like fights for the walkers or in the mid-boss pit. I listed items that deal damage, improve your movement, give you utility and crowd control, but what about healing items? Deadlock has just a couple of those, and my favorite one is probably Rescue Beam. If you play as a support, there is no better item than Rescue Beam in my opinion, because no matter how fucked in the head your teammates are, you can always just pull them out of any sketchy fight they get into. Or maybe you're in trouble and your slow ass Billy takes 3 years to get into the fight, you can just quickly summon him like your stand and do some cool plays like that. It is one of the best items in coordinated play as well. If you and your teammate can make calls, you can just let them overextend and go for risky plays while hovering over them, being ready to save them if needed. Other healing items are just kind of boring in comparison, and maybe we could get some more unique items for supports in the future. And we did get Golden Goose Egg recently, but I honestly still don't know how to feel about it, but I will say I want to see more items with debuffs, because I think it makes balancing them more interesting. Look at weighted shots for example. Seems like a ridiculously strong item on paper, but those movement debuffs it gives you are actually quite serious, and you have to consider if it's even worth buying it on your character. And I really like this approach. For example, weighted shots could be absurdly strong on a character like Silver, but since she relies so much on chasing people, it's a very questionable buy, and you have to take into account enemy team's comp if you really want to get it. Another green item I enjoy for some reason is Colossus. The stat bonuses it gives is nothing unique, but it makes you big. I don't know, I just think we don't have many items that change your character's appearances. And the way Colossus works is really cool. It gives you fat resist, but it also increases your model in size, so now it's easier to hit you. Pretty straightforward, but cool nonetheless. I honestly wish we could see an item like Shrink Ray from Street Brawl. If they made something that makes your model smaller but gives some considerable debuffs, I could see it work. And I also imagine it would be a cool way to give every character an option to get into the tunnels, because I think it's still ridiculous that there are only 3 characters in the game who get access to this treasure pile. But since I don't see them removing tunnels completely, an item like this could potentially work. Okay, one last item and you're free to go home. Lightning Scroll. Ever felt like you're not feeling Greek enough while playing Deadlock? Well, just buy Lightning Scroll. What an interesting item this one is. First of all, it upgrades from Mystic Slow, so you apply movement slow with your spirit damage, and then the enemies hit by your ultimate get struck by lightning, which stuns them and deals damage, of course. Once again, I'm being a fan of an item that has niche use cases, because realistically it's not going to be the go-to item for spirit builds. There is no point in building Lightning Scroll on a character like whose ultimate works on one person only, and I imagine you don't want to invest 6400 souls to stun one guy for 0.75 seconds. But then you have Ivy, who buys Mystic Expansion and Superior Duration, and now her ult not only covers half of the map, but it also sends the Rage of Nature itself upon you. It's an item that enhances only one ability in your kit, and it does it in a very fun way. We need more stuff like this. I also want to add one more thing as a bonus, since we are talking about items. In my previous video that you should watch, I mentioned that I want an alternative to Aghanim's Scepter from Dota in Deadlock, and I still do, but I thought of another way to balance it. The point of this item is to give your character a new ability or change one of their existing abilities in a considerable way, or as someone in the comments suggested, it could give you a tier 4 upgrade on one of the abilities you choose. An item like this would most likely be too powerful to attach any stat bonuses to it, so that's out of the question. But I suggested to make it a green item, which honestly might not be the best idea, because if it's a tier 4 item, that's a significant investment in the green category, and you will benefit a lot from purchasing it anyway. So maybe if an item like that existed, they could make it a separate category, something that's not green, spirit or gun. So buying it would be a large investment in souls, yet you don't get any stats increased, just the unique effect of this item. Anyway, I've been yapping for long enough, and now I am passing the torch. Share what items are your favorites and why, or maybe some cool ideas you have for new items. At the end of the day, Valve is in your walls and they see everything. Subscribe if you want to see more Deadlock content from me, and also content on other things that I'm obsessed with at the moment. Thank you for watching.
They do lots of things.